Ever wondered how one overheard conversation could change your entire life? Imagine discovering the people you trusted most were secretly plotting against you. In this story, I'll take you through the twists and turns of betrayal, resilience, and ultimately, finding the strength to rebuild. If you're ready for a journey you won't want to miss, make sure to subscribe and like. I heard my stepmom and stepsister planning to keep me from getting my dad's inheritance. So, I moved out and lived by myself for a year. Now my dad understands why, and everything is different. I'm a 23-year-old man, and for the past 5 years, I've lived with my dad, stepmom, and stepsister. My mom passed away when I was 16, and about a year later, my dad quickly remarried. Suddenly, I found myself with a new stepmom, Diane, and a younger stepsister, Megan, who is 2 years my junior. Initially, the atmosphere was bearable. Diane attempted to adopt the role of a caring mother, though it felt somewhat artificial. Megan was courteous, but always seemed to keep her distance. I attributed this to the uncomfortable transition into our new family structure and hoped things would eventually get better. After my mom's death, my dad immersed himself even deeper into his business ventures. He's a successful entrepreneur, often away on business trips or working late, which meant I spent considerable time alone with Diane and Megan. When my dad was around, we would have family dinners, presenting a facade of normalcy. I attended college locally, returning home during weekends and breaks. After graduation, I moved back home while searching for a job in my field. That's when the dynamics shifted. Diane's demeanor cooled, frequently hinting that I should be more independent. Meanwhile, Megan, fresh from earning her degree, also returned home, making our house feel even more cramped and subtly tense. The job market has been challenging in the current economic climate, but I've been persistently sending out applications and attending interviews for months. The response rate has been low, with only about 15% of my applications leading to interviews, a reflection of the tight job market. Despite this, my dad encourages me to hold out for a job that truly suits me, offering both moral and financial support during this trying period. Lately, Diane has been openly saying that I need to move out. Last week, I accidentally overheard a shocking conversation that turned everything upside down. I was in my room with the door closed when I heard Diane and Megan talking right outside in the hallway. They probably thought I was not home because they spoke loudly. Diane mentioned something about needing to get rid of him before finalizing a will. Megan agreed, saying they couldn't let me have an equal share of anything. It was clear they were talking about me. I was stunned and just sat there listening as they planned out loud. They talked about ways to make my dad think it was time for me to leave. Diane thought they should stop letting me use the family car, which would make it tough for me to go to job interviews. Megan even suggested breaking my laptop so I couldn't apply for jobs online. They discussed these cruel ideas for what seemed like a long time, but was only about 10 minutes. They talked about how much money they could have without me around and the trips and things they could buy. It was like they were planning to ruin my life. After they walked away from my door, I felt really sick. These were people I had lived with for years and thought of as family. But there they were, plotting against me as if I was just a problem that needed to be gone. The next few days felt like a haze. I tried to act normal, but it was tough. Every time I talked to Diane and Megan, it felt strange and fake. Sometimes I noticed them looking at me in a calculating way, which made me very uncomfortable. I thought about telling my dad, but I hesitated. He seemed happy with Diane, and I didn't want to ruin that for him. Besides, I had no proof of what they said. It would be my word against theirs, and I wasn't sure if my dad would believe me. So, I decided to keep my cool and make some plans. I reached out to friends, asking if anyone needed a roommate. I also expanded my job search, applying to jobs I had once thought were not a good fit. I was determined to leave that house. A week after I heard that unsettling conversation, I finally got a break. A friend of a friend needed someone to sublease their apartment for 6 months while they went abroad to study. The rent was high, but I could manage it by using some of my savings. I quickly took the opportunity. When I told my dad I was moving out, he was surprised but supportive. However, Diane and Megan barely hid their happiness. They pretended to help me pack, exchanging sly glances when they thought I wasn't looking. On the day I moved out, I accidentally heard them talking again. This time, they were plotting how to make sure my dad wouldn't change his will now that I was gone. That moment clarified that their plan wasn't just about getting me out. They wanted to exclude me completely. I've been living in my new place for a month now. It's small and not in the best neighborhood, but it's all mine. I'm still looking for a stable job, picking up temporary gigs to pay the bills. It's tough, but it's far better than staying in a home with people who only see me as a hurdle to their wealth. My dad checks on me every few days. He's noticed I don't visit much and seems concerned. I keep telling him I'm busy with job applications and settling in. I haven't told him the real reason yet. I just can't. I've considered getting a lawyer to protect any potential inheritance, but honestly, the money doesn't matter to me. What really hurts is realizing that the people I considered family view me as just an obstacle to their financial goals. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if my mom would be disappointed that I'm not fighting harder. But then, I remember her words, that family means love, not just blood ties or legal claims. By that measure, Diane and Megan were never truly my family. The future remains uncertain for me. Part of me is tempted to confront them, to expose their plotting. Yet, another part wants to just walk away and forget it all. For now, I'm dedicating myself to building my own life, independent of anyone else's goodwill or an inheritance. I recently got a job. It's entry level with modest pay, but it's a beginning. I haven't shared the news with my dad yet. I don't want Diane and Megan to know anything about my life. The less they know, the less they can interfere. I've also started therapy, the most affordable option I could find, to address the anger and sense of betrayal I'm grappling with. Therapy is gradually helping. My therapist recommended writing letters to Diane and Megan, letters I'll never send, as a way to express my feelings. I filled several notebooks with everything I wish I could tell them. Sometimes I dream about my mom. In these dreams, she's always smiling, telling me she's proud. I wake up with feelings of both comfort and sorrow. I miss her guidance more than ever, especially now as I navigate through this turmoil. I've considered reconnecting with my mom's family. We drifted apart after her death because it was too painful, but now I'm longing for that lost connection. It might be time to mend those ties. As time goes by, I've established a routine: work, home, and back again. It's not thrilling, but it is stable. I'm carving out a life for myself, one that's completely separate from Diane, Megan, or any thoughts of inheritance. My dad's birthday is next month, and I'm torn about attending the family dinner. I want to celebrate with him, but the idea of facing Diane and Megan, acting as if everything is normal, is daunting. Recently, I began volunteering at a local youth center on weekends. The kids there, many from challenging backgrounds or who have lost parents, resonate with me in a way they couldn't have before my own ordeal. It's healing to assist them in navigating their grief and anger. I often find myself wondering what story Diane and Megan have concocted about my sudden departure. Are they portraying me as the ungrateful stepson who abandoned them, or do they simply act as if I vanished into thin air? Although I try to push these thoughts away, they occasionally seep in. At work and through volunteering, I've formed new friendships. These connections are based on genuine interactions, free from the shadows of inheritance disputes or family drama, which feels refreshingly sincere compared to my relationships with Diane or Megan. An unexpected encounter with Megan at the grocery store recently tested my composure. She approached with exaggerated friendliness, probing about my job and new living situation. I kept my responses brief and excused myself quickly, but the interaction left me rattled for days afterward. This experience has prompted me to rethink my long-term plans. Should I continue living in a city where every corner might bring a run-in with Diane or Megan? The allure of starting fresh in a new place is growing, yet the thought of leaving my dad behind complicates my decision. With my lease nearing renewal, I'm torn between the comfort of my current routine and the potential benefits of seeking a better living situation elsewhere. Despite the allure of change, the idea of another move feels daunting. Amidst these contemplations, I've ventured back into the dating scene. These casual dates are lighthearted and enjoyable, providing a welcome distraction from the heavier decisions weighing on my mind. Navigating the dating scene has been refreshing, yet it presents its own challenges. I often find myself reluctant to fully open up, haunted by fears of betrayal or hurt. My therapist reassures me that this hesitancy is normal and that trust will take time to rebuild. Meanwhile, work has been a positive outlet. I recently received a modest promotion, which has slightly relieved my financial pressures. Now I'm able to cover my rent without tapping into my savings. a small but meaningful triumph. Despite this progress, I still haven't confided in my dad about the hurtful conversation I overheard between Diane and Megan. Each time I consider telling him, doubts hold me back. What if he doesn't believe me? What if it drives a wedge between us? The possibility of losing him too is unbearable. At times, I find myself irrationally angry at my mom for leaving me in such a predicament by passing away. I know it's unreasonable, but the sentiment sticks with me. If she were still here, I believe none of this turmoil would have unfolded. I would still have my home, my family, a sense of belonging. These thoughts are hard to shake off. To keep busy, I've taken up cooking. It was never a skill I needed at home, but now it's essential. Although I'm not yet skilled, I'm getting better, and there's a real satisfaction in preparing meals from scratch. It feels like I'm nurturing myself in a very real way. As the holidays draw near, they bring new dilemmas. Should I return home for Christmas or find reasons to stay away? The prospect of enduring forced smiles and superficial cheer is daunting, yet the alternative, spending the holidays alone, is equally disheartening. Lately, sleep has been elusive. I spend nights awake, haunted by the echoes of that damning conversation I overheard, unable to escape the cycle of replaying their words in my mind. Reflecting on my past interactions with Diane and Megan since they entered my life, I often wonder if there were signs I missed. This analysis is exhausting, but my mind races relentlessly. I've contemplated confronting them directly, revealing that I heard everything and know their intentions. However, what would that truly achieve? Likely they would deny everything or manipulate the truth, and it could even escalate tensions with my dad, potentially causing more harm than good. Some days, I manage well. I go to work, return home, and live my life normally. But other days feel overwhelming, the weight of the betrayal crushing me. On those days, it's a struggle just to get out of bed and face a world where my supposed family viewed me merely as an obstacle. To cope, I've started journaling, documenting my daily thoughts and emotions. This process offers some relief, helping me channel my feelings constructively. These entries might someday serve as a testament to my resilience during this challenging period. Now, as I near the 6-month anniversary of my independence, I reflect on the transformation within me. I am not the same person who overheard that fateful conversation. In some ways, I'm stronger. In others, more vulnerable. I'm learning to be self-reliant, to forge a life uninfluenced by others' intentions or assets. The future remains uncertain. Will I confront Diane and Megan? Will I disclose everything to my dad? Can I move beyond this betrayal to trust again? These questions linger, unresolved. For now, I focus on taking each day as it comes, striving to build a life that is uniquely mine. It's challenging, and not the life I envisioned, but it is genuinely my own. And perhaps that's enough for now. Update 1. It's been a year since I left my father's house after discovering the plot against me by my stepmom and stepsister. Much has changed over this year, and not all changes have been positive. I apologize for the delay in updating. Life has been tumultuous, and finding both time and the emotional strength to write has been a struggle. With my focus on work, therapy, and just keeping my life together, updating my story on Reddit fell to the wayside. But I realize many of you have been waiting for an update, so here it is. I deeply appreciate everyone who reached out on my original post with advice and support. Your words were a lifeline during those tough first months on my own. I tried to read all your comments, and even if I couldn't reply to each one, know that they meant the world to me. Now for the update. I'm still in the same job I landed after moving out. It's not perfect. The pay barely covers my bills, and I've been searching for something better. The job market is challenging, though, and each rejection feels like a step back, reminding me of the uphill battle I'm facing. Things with my dad have gotten more complicated. I've been avoiding family gatherings and finding excuses not to visit. He's noticed and calls more often, concerned. It's tough lying to him about why I stay away, but I'm not ready to tell him about Diane and Megan's scheming. When we do meet, he seems worried and tired. I wonder if it's just concern for me, or if Diane and Megan are stressing him out too. I went to his birthday dinner a few months ago, dreading it. True to form, Diane and Megan were all smiles, pretending to care about my job and living situation. Their questions seemed laced with hidden motives, likely calculating if I was struggling enough to abandon any claims on an inheritance. I left the birthday dinner as early as I could, making up an excuse about an early meeting the next morning. The holidays were particularly tough. I told my dad I had to work and couldn't come home for Christmas, but the truth was, I spent the day alone in my apartment. My holiday meal was a microwave turkey dinner, and I watched old movies to pass the time. It was a somber day, yet still preferable to the charade of a happy family with Diane and Megan. Lately, the thought of telling my dad the truth has been weighing on me more heavily. Each time I consider it, though, I find reasons to hold back. What if he doesn't believe me? What if it causes a rift between us? Worse, what if he believes me but chooses Diane over me? I'm not sure I'm prepared to face that potential rejection. While therapy has been beneficial, the journey through my feelings of anger and betrayal is a slow one. My therapist reassures me that this is a normal pace, that healing isn't quick. But on the hard days, it feels like moving past this might never happen. I've bumped into Megan a few more times around town, and she always acts as if everything is normal, as if we're still a happy family, which is unnerving. I've started avoiding certain places just to reduce the chances of encountering her or Diane. In contrast, volunteering at the youth center continues to be a positive experience. I formed a special bond with a teenager named Alex, who lost his mother last year. Helping him with his grief has surprisingly helped me heal a bit too. It reminds me that there is still goodness in the world, and meaningful connections can still be made. Dating has been a challenge. I found it hard to be open and often feel on edge, waiting for things to go wrong. Recently, a date ended when she commented that I had too much baggage. She might be right. With my lease ending next month, I'm torn about what to do next. The thought of moving is daunting, yet staying in this cramped, noisy apartment is increasingly unappealing. I've been exploring other places, considering even a move to the next city over. A fresh start sounds good. I reached out to my mom's sister, Aunt Sarah, whom I hadn't spoken to since my mom's funeral. It was a bit awkward at first, but talking to her felt like finding a part of myself I thought I'd lost. She invited me to spend a weekend with her family, and I'm thinking about going, though the thought of explaining everything that's happened feels overwhelming. Lately, work has been stressful. There are rumors of layoffs, and since I'm one of the newer employees, I worry I might lose my job. The idea of being out of work scares me. My savings are low, and I'm not sure how long I could manage without a paycheck. I've even had nightmares about becoming homeless or having to return to my dad's house to face Diane and Megan. I wake from these dreams, sweating and scared, and it takes a long time to calm down and fall asleep again. My birthday just passed quietly. Dad called, and a few friends took me out for drinks, but it wasn't like the big family birthdays we had when my mom was still here. It felt very sad in comparison. I think about my mom a lot these days. I wonder what she would think of everything going on and how she would tell me to handle it. Sometimes I talk to her picture, telling her about everything that's happened. It might sound silly, but it helps me. My anger toward Diane and Megan hasn't gotten any better over this past year. If anything, it's gotten worse. I often imagine confronting them, making them admit everything and watching Dad send them away. But I know that's just in my imagination. I've even started to look into legal options. I met with a lawyer who knows a lot about wills and estates. The lawyer I met with said that without solid evidence, there's little I can do to secure any inheritance I might have. He suggested that I talk to my dad about setting up a trust, but that would require telling him everything, and I'm not ready for that step yet. Meanwhile, the stress has started affecting my health. I've lost weight and I'm always feeling tired. My doctor told me that my blood pressure is high and advised me to find ways to relax, though that's easier said than done. I've considered moving to a new city to escape the possibility of running into Diane or Megan, but the idea of leaving my dad and possibly never seeing him again is too heartbreaking to think about seriously. Despite the challenges, there have been some positive moments. I've made a few good friends at work and through my volunteer activities. They don't know everything that's been going on, but they offer support in their own ways. It's comforting to have people who appreciate me for who I am, not for any possible money I might inherit. To distract myself, I've taken up new hobbies. I've started learning to play the guitar, something I've always wanted to try but never had the time for before. I'm not great at it yet, but I find the learning process enjoyable. I've also taken up running. Initially, it was just a reason to get out of my apartment and clear my head, but I've grown to like it. Running helps me push my physical limits and momentarily leave my worries behind. As the 1 year anniversary of my move approached, I began feeling more anxious. It seemed like I should have made more progress by now and be in a better place. My therapist reminded me that I'm being too harsh on myself and that healing doesn't follow a straight path. I'm trying to take my therapist's advice to heart. I did visit Aunt Sarah and her family recently. It was comforting to be around people who knew my mom and could share stories about her that were new to me. For a weekend, I felt like I belonged somewhere again, but returning to my empty apartment afterward was tougher than I thought it would be. During the visit, Aunt Sarah asked about my dad and how he was doing with his new wife. I struggled to respond, almost choking on my words. She noticed and gently asked for more details. I ended up telling her everything. Aunt Sarah was really upset for me. She wanted to call my dad right away and confront Diane and Megan herself. I had to calm her down and explain why I hadn't told him yet. She didn't agree with my choice, but respected it. Before I left, she made me promise to stay in touch and to reach out if I ever needed anything. Having someone from my mom's side of the family support me has been a big relief. Aunt Sarah now calls me regularly to see how I am. She even said I could stay with her family if I ever needed to, especially if money got tight. I'm not ready to accept her offer yet, but it's good to know it's there. Things with my dad reached a turning point last week. He came to my apartment without warning, looking very worried. He said he couldn't handle the distance between us anymore and needed to know what was happening. I tried to avoid the topic at first, but he insisted on knowing the truth. We ended up talking for hours. I told him everything. About overhearing Diane and Megan, my concerns about the inheritance, and why I had been staying away from family events. I couldn't hold back my emotions as I spoke. Dad listened without interrupting, his expression becoming more serious with each word. After I finished, he was silent for a long while. Then he apologized, saying he had no idea all this was happening and admitted he had been oblivious to the problems at home. My dad didn't exactly say he believed me, but he also didn't ignore my worries. He promised to watch Diane and Megan more closely and even mentioned he'd speak to his lawyer about securing my inheritance, no matter what happens with his marriage. After our conversation, I felt a huge relief, like a big weight was lifted off me. But I also felt guilty for possibly causing trouble in his life and marriage. Dad reassured me that I did the right thing by telling him everything, even though I could see he was troubled. It's been a week since we talked, and I haven't heard much from him. He sent a text saying he was looking into everything and would get back to me soon. I'm trying not to worry too much about his silence, but it's difficult. Yesterday, Diane called me with her usual overly sweet voice, inviting me to dinner on Sunday. I said no, making up an excuse about work. I'm not sure if she knows that my dad and I had a talk. Maybe she's trying to smooth things over. Just thinking about it makes me feel uneasy. As I near the start of my second year living on my own, I feel like I'm at a crossroads. Should I stay here, close to my dad but also near Diane and Megan? Should I move closer to my mom's family with Aunt Sarah? Or should I move to a new city and start completely fresh? I don't have the answers yet, but for the first time in a while, I feel like I have choices. The future is uncertain, but it doesn't seem as dark as it did a year ago. I'm not completely okay yet, but I'm starting to think I might get there. For now, I'm focusing on one day at a time. I'm concentrating on my job, my volunteer work, and my new hobbies. I'm trying to build a life that's truly mine, one that doesn't rely on anyone else's kindness or money. It's not easy, and it's different from the life I thought I'd have. It's my life, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Talking with my dad has brought back many old feelings. I think about my mom a lot, wondering what she would think of everything that's happened. Would she be proud of me for standing on my own? Disappointed that I didn't fight harder? I'll never know, and that uncertainty really bothers me. I've been having trouble sleeping again. Every time my phone rings, I get nervous, wondering if it's my dad with some news. The wait is very hard. I keep busy with work and my hobbies to distract myself, but when things get quiet, the worries come back. Update 2. Last week, Megan tried to add me as a friend on social media. I ignored her request, but it made me uneasy. Is she trying to keep an eye on me? Or is it just another way to pretend we're a happy family? Either way, I don't want any part of it. I've been thinking a lot about the future. Before all this, I had some ideas about possibly going to grad school or moving up in my career. Now I feel like I'm just trying to survive, always trying to keep my head above water. I wonder if I'll ever be able to think about the future with hope instead of anxiety. My apartment lease is up next week, and after a lot of thought, I've decided to move. I'm not going far, just to a better apartment in a different part of town. It's a small step, but it feels important. It's like I'm choosing to move forward instead of staying stuck. I had dinner with Alex from the youth center last night. He's about to go to college, and he wanted to thank me for all the support I've given him this past year. Seeing how much he's overcome and how he's moving on with his life gave me a bit of hope. Maybe I can do the same. As I pack up my apartment, I'm reflecting on my life. A year ago, I left my family home with just a suitcase and a broken heart. Now I have a job, an apartment, and friends. It's not a lot, but it's all mine, something I built on my own. There's pride in that, even though there's still some pain and uncertainty. I'm still waiting to hear from my dad about his findings. The silence is really tough, but I'm trying to stay patient. No matter what happens, I know I can handle it. I'm much stronger now than I was a year ago. I've dealt with betrayal, loneliness, and uncertainty. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Right now, I'm focused on my move, on setting up my new apartment, making it feel like home, and continuing to build my own life, no matter what happens with Dad, Diane, and Megan. It's not the life I expected, but it's the life I have, and that's enough for today. Final update. It's been 3 months since my last update, and a lot has changed. The biggest news is about my dad. After our talk, where I shared everything I overheard about Diane and Megan, he spent weeks looking into it. He hired a private investigator, checked financial records, and even set up a sting operation, though he hasn't shared the details with me. Eventually, he found enough proof to confirm what I'd told him, and more. Diane and Megan had been secretly taking money from his accounts for years. They took small amounts to avoid suspicion, but over time, it added up to a lot. They were also trying to get him to change his will, using emotional tricks that the investigator documented. When my dad confronted them with the proof, things got really messy. Diane first denied everything, then tried to blame Megan. Megan ended up admitting to everything and blamed Diane. It all fell apart quickly. In the end, my dad filed for divorce and is pressing charges against them for the money they took. Diane and Megan have moved out and are now staying with Diane's sister in another state. I have mixed feelings about all of this. On one hand, I feel relieved that the truth came out and that what I overheard was real. On the other hand, it's tough to see my dad hurting like this. He really cared for Diane, or at least he thought he did, and learning that it was all a sham has hit him hard. We've been talking a lot more now. He's apologized over and over for not realizing what was going on and for not believing me earlier. I've forgiven him, but things between us are still a bit tense. We're making an effort, though. We've started having dinner together every week, just the two of us. It's sometimes awkward, but it's helping us reconnect. As for me, I'm settling into my new apartment. The move felt like a new beginning, and it's nice to have a place that's truly my own, free from any ties to Diane or Megan. I'm slowly decorating it to make it feel more like home. It's not a big place, but it's mine, and that's important to me. Things at work have improved too. The layoffs I was worried about didn't happen, and I even received a small raise. It's not a lot, but now I'm not just scraping by paycheck to paycheck. I've started saving a little each month. It's a modest amount, but it's a beginning. Therapy is still part of my life. My therapist tells me I'm progressing, even if it doesn't always feel that way. The feelings of anger and betrayal are still there, but they don't dominate my thoughts like before. I'm learning to live with what happened and not let it define me. I've also been spending more time with my mom's family. Aunt Sarah has been incredibly supportive, almost like a second mom, always ready to offer advice or just listen when I need to talk. I've been visiting her and getting to know my cousins better. It's comforting to feel like I have a family again, even if it's different from the one I grew up with. Dating is still tricky. I've been out on a few dates, but nothing serious yet. I'm still working on trusting others and being more open. My therapist says this is normal and that building trust will take time. I'm trying to be patient with myself. One surprising turn in my life is that I've begun writing. It started with simple journaling, but now I'm thinking about turning my experiences into a book. It might be a memoir or maybe something fictionalized. I haven't decided yet. Writing has become a way for me to work through everything that's happened. During a lengthy conversation last week, Dad and I discussed the inheritance issue. He set up a trust for me, independent of his other assets. He wants to ensure I'm looked after, no matter what. I told him the money wasn't important to me, but he insisted on it. I think he sees it as his way of making things right. Dad's also considering selling our family home. It holds too many painful memories for him. While it's sad to think about losing my childhood home, I understand his desire for a new beginning. We've started looking at smaller places together, and he's half-jokingly mentioned us becoming roommates. However, I think we both realize that having our own spaces is best. Last week, I encountered one of Megan's friends at the grocery store. She gave me a harsh look and accused me of ruining Megan's life. I felt like defending myself, but I chose to walk away instead. Their opinions don't matter to me anymore. I know the truth, and that's enough. Work has been a great distraction. I've been dedicating extra effort to my projects, and my boss has taken notice. She's even mentioned a potential promotion soon, which feels rewarding. It's good to be recognized for my efforts. Dad and I are planning a simple trip together, just a weekend at a lake we used to visit for camping trips when I was young, before my mom became ill. It's a chance to work on our relationship and start replacing some of the bad memories with new positive ones. I've been thinking a lot about my mom lately, wondering what she would think of everything that's happened. I miss her more than ever. Last time I visited Aunt Sarah, she gave me a box of my mom's old things, photos, letters, and some of her jewelry. Going through it was tough, but also healing. It's comforting to have these physical reminders of her. I've started reconnecting with old friends, people I lost touch with when everything went wrong with Diane and Megan. Some have been open to catching up, while others haven't, but it feels good to rebuild those connections and surround myself with people who knew me before all this. The legal battle with Diane and Megan is still ongoing. Dad's lawyer keeps us in the loop, but I'm trying not to let it take over my thoughts. They'll get what's coming to them, but I'm done letting their actions dictate my life. I've been thinking more about the future lately, not just getting through each day, but actually planning ahead. I'm considering going back to school, maybe to get a master's degree. It's a big step, but for the first time in a long while, I feel ready to take it. There are still bad days, but the good days are starting to come more often. I'm not completely okay yet, but I'm on my way. I'm creating a life that's my own, not defined by what Diane and Megan tried to do to me. It's not the life I imagined, but it's mine. And for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to see what the future holds. To everyone who's followed my journey, who's offered support and advice, thank you. Your kindness has meant more to me than you'll ever know. This is my final update. It's time to close this chapter and focus on what comes next. Wish me luck.